right. How are we starting?
Dude, I'm excited to go on this trip. How about you?
Yeah, dude.
We're doing it.
Long journey.
You
It's
gotta,
been a long journey. Yeah, it's just 2 years, more than 3 years now.
yeah.
It's coming up 3 years when we come up with this project, which is insane. Talking about it. This is 2020, the midst of the George Floyd pandemic and everything else. And it was something special for sure. We never thought that would be happening.
Oh, who knew? You know, you're sitting there one day just doing your thing. Next thing you know, boom, this whole outbreak of civil unrest happens. And thank God you had a camera and the ambition to go out and shoot.
I remember the first day when we started shooting, I just went out for a run. I wasn't going to shoot or anything like that. I was just running like any other day. I was pandemic, no gyms, no nothing like that. So you gotta go run outside. I was running and I saw this protest happening and the police was throwing tear gas, rubber bullets and all this stuff. And it just reminded me of where I'm from, like Middle East. And I was like, this is a scene from that side of the world. I would never expect that happening here. People just having a peaceful protest, all of a sudden, mayhem, and it's just aggravated by the police and everything else. And that's when we met each other right after that.
Yeah. That was amazing. Went to a party that neither of us wanted to go to. Well, I mean, we wanted to go to it, but, you know, everything happens for a reason. I'm a true believer of that. It sounds cliche, but I believe it 100%. You know, who knows where we are today if we don't go? If we don't say yes, we don't take that chance, we don't be brave and take a step. But a lot of times, people don't take those steps due to fear or, you know, whatever.
I think the essential of this project came about because you saw a man die right in front of your eyes, and that's something you don't see every day. And I think that started a conversation that we were all needed to have, that as far as why this keep happening. This is not just one incident. This is just one incident that happened in front of our eyes, and it's been happening for years now. And that's when we found Jaya when I was in the protests. We followed him for almost a couple months. And when we met, we decided to interview him too, go to his house, find out who he is, what he does, and why he wants to be an activist. And I think when you hear his backstory and where he's from and how he is as a human being, you're seeing your media usually portray activists or Black Lives Matter members as a part of this angry group who wants against the system and everything else. And it was far from it. It was actually see a guy with the most peaceful mindset, with a family from all colors, and he loved them. He didn't judge them. He was just wanted to make sure what's happening outside of his home was justifiable.
Uh-huh. But it's just like you said, how would we have known that unless we went to his home, went inside of his world to see who he was? And that's what I think ultimately we want to do. We strive to try to find out who that person is, because so oftentimes in our society today, we just judge without any sort of, you know, backstory or really getting to know a person. We judge people in other countries. We judge people down the hall from us. We judge people at work without ever fully getting to know that person. That's what we're trying to do, to go into these places, to go into the cities and the homes and the countries or the workplaces or wherever a person is doing their thing, and find out who they are. Find out what drives that person, what motivates them, why may they have felt like this, instead of just saying, oh, that person is racist. Well, they weren't born that way. Something happened with that person along their journey that created that hate. So that's what we're about. We want to find out, where did that come from? Why did you hate that man? Why did you hate that person so bad that you wanted to kill him? So what was it that led to that sort of anger? So that's what we want to find. No one is born hating. You learn that. So now it's time to unlearn those things, and it's time to take steps to prevent that sort of pattern from continuing.
Absolutely. I think like when we started this project, it was just about Jai at first. And we decided to go to the direction of, we need to hear the other side. We went through the finding the right cup and find the person we think would be a great interview. And for me was more than anything important was someone that is not your typical white male cop you seen on TV that portray like that. There are usually people who are angry, out of shape. And through a lot of interviews, we finally find Kyle, which phenomenal story. I feel like his story and how he, only because of his honesty, only because he wanted to tell the truth, he lost his job. And the biggest problem with the system is the person who's telling the truth, for the smallest crime you ever think about, smoking a weed, gets kicked out of the force, while we have people who kill, use their power in any way possible, which is not justifiable. They don't lose their jobs. They don't become something what we accept our justice system to be.
True. I tend to look past the justice system, to be honest. I feel like a lot of times we focus on these systems and these great, big, structures that are put in place, when it's really about the individual. System or no system, you know what's right and what's wrong. And if whatever pulls you either way, to the right side or to the wrong side, that's a testament of your character, right? Whether a system told you that that was okay to kneel on someone's neck like that, you know better. You know you didn't have to do that. You know that there was another way that you could have handled that, but there was something inside of that person, and that's just in that instance. But in many instances, that create that sort of thing. What was it in you that said, you know what, this is okay, I'm going to do this, knowing that it was wrong? What was it inside of you if you were an officer who was the bystander? You weren't the one actually doing the thing, but you watched it. And you said, well, I'm under this system and, these are my teammates and blah, blah, blah. No, on any team, it's about leadership. That's just the testament to your upbringing, your whatever. What I'm hoping that we can produce is more leaders. Leaders in the sense that you wouldn't stand by and watch something negatively happen like that if you knew that it was wrong. System or no system, you know what's right, you know what's wrong. That's someone's child right there. Whatever that person did, you aren't God, you aren't there's the law and order, sure. Look, we are people first. Forget a system. You're a person. You did something wrong. I'm an officer, I have guns on me, I have a plethora of things that can control you. But I only need it if I need it. I don't need it to flex and be like, look what I got and you're going to do what no. It's something that's plagued mankind since the beginning of time. It's this need for power. I want to show you that I'm in charge and you're going to do what I say. What does that mean? So what? Learn to use your words. Learn to use empathy. Hey man, what are you doing? Why'd you do that? Do you need help with something? Let me help. Don't do it that way. You know what I mean? There's an ethics involved. And so I feel like things are changing for the good, and I'm optimistic that the younger generations are starting to see things for what they really are. Social media is a great thing in that regard, I feel like, because now we're connected to people all over the world in a way that we never had been before. And so we're starting to share these stories. and feel each other's pain and say, hey, look, what are we doing? We're on this planet for this much time, and this is how we're spending it? Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when we began this project, I remember we were at Air One, our first meeting, and we both kind of fed up with what's happening. And I think one of our work that had always been there, one thing we always said, no matter what, I believe we always said, if we can change one person's life, one person's perspective, we win.
Right.
And I think this documentary, which took us 2 years to finish, maybe more actually, with the editing and everything, probably 3 years. But besides the journey, when we were making this, we said, we just want to, we didn't do it for money. We didn't do it for fame or any of that aspect of the project. We just did it because we wanted to show the other side, the good side of every human being. And I think that's what's missing. When we started this project, we had a lot of people as writers and other people we bring in to help us. And a lot of them wanted to put those two people against each other, the activists versus the police. And I think our main goal was we didn't want that. We actually wanted to emphasize on the human side of each of their stories and their journeys for 2 years, what they go through, what they do every day. And instead of being that person who's one side cop, one side activist, and maybe they can teach each other something, all those stereotype or dumb documentaries you always see, which is take sides. No, we just wanted to individually pay attention to them. And when they met, and eventually, probably after 2 years, one thing I noticed, there never was that feeling of alienation or feeling of scare or anger or anything like that. When they met, they just met like two friends or two human beings want to meet each other. And I think our emphasis wasn't on the side of which is the dark side. We started it because we saw a man die, but we also started it because we wanted to see how can we, instead of pointing fingers, let's learn from it. Let's learn of individual human beings, what they go through every day. I think as Jaya starts developing and becoming an activist, and you see his journey, why he became an activist, because the racism he had to endure during the elementary and middle school and high school, and he just wanted to stop that cycle, at least for his kids or the next generation. He wanted to make sure he doesn't endure the things he endured at the younger age, but he does it with love. And I think one of the emphasis on the documentary, and this is where we eventually got introduced to Jaya, because when we got into Huntington Beach and there was a Trump side, there was a Black Lives Matter side. They were all fighting. However you want to call it. This person was saying, you're wrong, and the other person getting too wrong, and then they met in the middle of the street and start fighting. And in the documentary, you would able to see that fight and see how crazy it got. And Jaya, one thing he's mentioned in that part, which is essential to our documentary, is what are we fitting to this fighting and rage and anger? We want to make sure we are better human beings. We're better than this. If we fight, if we get into this nonsense, we're never going to progress and we're never going to be better. And I think that's one of the main reasons that I felt we needed to show, because you see activists, you see looting and everything else that's all these news channels do. They show those things because that's what people want to watch. They don't want to watch a march or anything like that. We don't see that side of the street. We only see the part with looting and crazy protests and people getting angry. They are there. We're not ignoring that, but it's so little that it's not what they represented. The same thing with the cop, I believe. When we find Kyle, we saw an innocent kid who was just a good human being from Utah with a family uncles, father, everyone else who was a policeman. All he wanted to do become like his dad. How many of us want to do that? How many of us as a kid we admire our dads and wanted to become them? And that's all he did. But when he got into the system and he saw the side that he didn't want to see, and how as a human being he said, I cannot live with myself telling lies, living with a system like this, even though all my family members, everyone I know was a cop. I have to leave the job that I love and passionate about because I don't believe in it anymore.
For me, that's what I'm most proud of. The work that we're doing is that we're actually trying to get in there and go to the countries, go to the cities, go to the workplaces or wherever a person may be, because it's made a world of difference. And I think what we're doing is going to make a huge difference in our society and to, for humanity.
Under the main title, the film reads, "Not So Black and White," saying that I really appreciate the filmmaker working hard to allow the participants to share their stories and different perspectives.
Allows different sides to speak with each other and hear each other's voices and thoughts in a meaningful way and come to surprisingly similar conclusions.
It manages to talk about why it's important and also kind of rouse the audience to take action.
Is doing what we actually need to do in the United States is sit down and actually have conversations with each other to figure out what is going wrong. And this documentary started that discussion, and I think that makes it a great film.